Hello, hello. Welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We are truly here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. And I know people don't like to hear that word, but you know what? I'm going to say it over and over and over again. We need to talk about things that make people feel uncomfortable, and we're trying to change that dialogue around that word. So think about H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. There are a lot of amazing cannabis formulations that people are making in the community, and there's great companies that are selling these products, yet no one is truly educating patients on how to use cannabis as medicine. That's what we do. That's what cannabis nurses do. That's what we focus on. We teach patients the safe utilization of cannabinoids and other progressive therapies for overall health and wellness to support and nourish the endocannabinoid system. So here's a little video about what we do, and then we're going to dig right into the podcast. I have a very, very special guest. I'm sure you all know Heather Manis, but let's get started. Okay, and here we go.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship. And what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses, from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine. And I'm excited to really bring this into light. There's a company called Canam that we're merging with, and we will now be doing global education.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
All right, well, there we go. So y'all, we've been highlighting cannabis nurses and cannabis health professionals as we are truly in revolutionary times where we're changing how we approach and take care of patients. Part of that is sharing compelling stories of healing, or what I like to call real world evidence, with real cannabis nurses who are in the space doing the work. May was National Nurses Month, and we are here today to honor the Cannabis Nurses Network. CNN was one of the first cannabis nursing organizations that many of us newbies, including myself, joined, and I'm honored to be one of the founding members. Cannabis Nurses Network is about advancing nurses in the cannabis space with education, providing opportunity, recognition, and advocacy. And I'm extremely honored to introduce the CEO and founder, Heather Manis. Heather Manis is native to New Mexico, and she began her career as a psychiatric home care nurse. She has an extensive background and experience in natural healing modalities and herbal remedies, some of which she obtained from her close association with Hispanic and Native American healers in New Mexico. Her vast knowledge and holistic approach to individualized patient care has been the cornerstone of her success as a nurse, educator, entrepreneur, and promoter of health. She is the CEO and founder of the Cannabis Nurses Network and has helped me and many, many other nurses grow both personally and professionally. Welcome back to the show, Nurse Heather.
Thank you so much. I was just sitting here thinking about the history and the past and, all that we've been through to get to this point. And it's just always so good to be with you again, Nurse Sherry.
Oh, thank you so much, Nurse Heather. And when I had the amazing opportunity to spend time with you at the Cannabis Science Conference just last week.
Yeah, wasn't that fun?
Well, what I really loved was the Cannabis Nurses Network was a big, huge part of the conference discussing extremely important topics. So we want to talk a little bit about those panels.
Yeah, no, we really did come out hard. We've all sort of been missing these connections that you get when you come together in groups and attend these conferences and speak together on panels. And so we had a wonderful panel with our cannabis nurses. And then we had another panel that was for the medical cannabis track. And then we did another panel with our wonderful cannabis nurses for the psychedelic track. And this was the first year that that psychedelic track has been added to the Cannabis Science Conference. And it was a real privilege to be part of that.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely amazing. Of course, I went to all of the presentations that the Cannabis Nurses Network presented at. Also, you guys had a table there, which was amazing. There was a lot of nurses that were there. We had a lot of good reception. People are still new to the idea that there are nurses out there that are doing this work. And, it's really, really important, Heather, you opened up my eyes to trauma recovery, the Lotus theory. And actually, you've helped educate me also on psychedelic medicines in the past as well. And it's really, really important, that whole spirit medicine component to healing. Because if you think about what are we doing in the conventional space right now? We focus on body parts, prescriptions, pills, procedures, cutting people up. We're lucky if we get to mental, emotional health, and we usually don't unless someone's in a crisis. And rarely do we ever touch upon spirituality unless someone is dying. So in the cannabis nursing space, we're encompassing all of it. Plant medicine does encompass bio, psychosocial, spiritual healing because these plants work on multiple different systems at the exact same time. Elizabeth Mack has this quote, "Cannabis is pleiotropic. It is a medicinal treasure trove." And it's because it does work on multiple different physiological systems at the exact same time. So will you just tell our viewers a little bit more about the panel? Because, the presentation was really, really beautiful. There was a group of you that spoke. Everyone had something amazing to say. We captured some of it. I'm going to put it up in clips during the rest of this week because these are topics that are important. No one wants to talk woo-woo. No one wants to talk spirituality, but these are the basics of the traditional medicine. When we're not talking traditional conventional, we're talking traditional historically, way, way back, with the indigenous people that used to use these plants all the time for healing. Yeah. So I think
they still do use these plants. I mean, exactly. I was really compelled by, Mino, the shaman from Peru that was there. He's an ambassador for his village. And I thought that was so awesome that he was able to be there and say, I speak around the world and talk about the impacts this craze for psychedelic medicines or this, greed in forestry and tearing down our rainforest, that how it impacts their entire culture and their entire way of life, and this loss of culture and a loss of language. And so it was really beautiful to have him there speaking as a traditional healer. And we had that experience together in New Mexico, where he actually guided us through the sacred sheri ceremony with sacred tobacco. And I felt it was so interesting. We had Nurse Jamie was talking about ketamine and end of life. Marcy was talking about end of life. But I thought it was really interesting to hear the shaman's perspectives. And he was talking about tobacco, which in our Western culture is like stop smoking, no, because of the way that we've misused it. And so I thought it was cool to be in the room while he was talking about sacred tobacco and being able to feel that vibratory frequency elevation that happened just by being in the presence of someone who is a knowledge holder and a sacred person and a sacred medicine person. And as we were talking about psychedelics and listening to a lot of other speakers talk about psychedelics, I thought it was really important to have Mino there talking about how that culture is piece of it, and how the healers that are traditionally, generationally to generations, are the ones that are sharing this knowledge. And as we're coming into this race of the psychedelic renaissance to say, where can we mark our place as nurses? Where can we mark our place as science and medicine? I think it's really important to remember that, at least for myself, I want to sit with healers and ancient wise ones, and I want to be healed and led and guided and loved by them, even more so than I want to be a nurse that sits with patients who will be experiencing these medicines in a medicinal setting. So I think there's room for both, and I loved how cannabis science brought that all together.
I do too. And, and that just brings me into, if we're going to step back to cannabis, right? So you think about these native, these healers that have been doing this for a very long time. They're the wisdom keepers. They carry the knowledge and they carry it down from generation to generation. They sit with their families to learn. So I'm going to tie it back over a little bit to cannabis, because cannabis is very similar. And I like to give tribute and thanks and gratitude to the grassroots cannabis community. So you think about, right, as nurses, well, you were different. You've been in the space a lot longer. But when I started in the cannabis space as a patient first, I didn't go to a doctor. I didn't go to a nurse. There weren't clinics. I was plagued with stigma. When I went, they just wrote me I went and hid, and they wrote me a card and sent me on my way. So it was the grassroots community, the people that have been doing this for years and years and years, that stepped up and embraced me and a lot of other new nurses that were patients in the space to teach us and educate us. So it's really important that you give thanks and gratitude and tribute, and you learn from the culture in order to carry this forward, because we don't want to miss that important piece of it. It really is, it's a component of the healing. We don't want to take away the humanity, the feeling, the emotion, the spirituality. We don't want it, as nurses, right? We're used to that sterile environment. Now we want to get back to real caring. And what does caring look like? It's more than pills and procedures and studies and research and clinical. It's really tapping into the human spirit. So that's why I thought it was just beautiful, the presentation that you all put together, and how it ties into healing on multiple different levels, including end of life. So people think end of life, that's it, there's no healing. No, that's another aspect of healing. You think about when you're coming into this world, we prepare for birth, right? The woman's pregnant and you're preparing. You don't know what it's going to look like when it happens, but you still prepare. Well, very similar to death and dying, right? All you're doing is leaving this physical world into another world. Just like with birth, you're coming into this world, you're going to leave this world, and it needs to be a celebration. It needs to be planned. And there's no reason why we can't be facilitators of education for people to learn a new way to heal, even at the end of life. So really, really beautiful.
Yeah, no, and you touched on a good point too about the cannabis community and the culture of cannabis patients, and the reason why we even have legal cannabis today for adult use is because of the patient movement that brought that. And I love, again, it's in this community is a healing tool. And so a lot of times, even if you're not using cannabis and you're in that community, you're still experiencing that healing. And I just think that community is so important when we're talking about the spirit, because we all inspire one another and uplift one another and connect with each other on those spiritual levels as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But the research is important too,
It is. Well, it is. The research, I never poo-poo it. I used to poo-poo it because
Yeah. Well, and Nurse Neek is doing some wonderful research. She was there on the medical cannabis panel talking
Yes.
about, the
Cannabis use
research
disorder.
that she's conducting on this cannabis use disorder and how she's identified that the way that we diagnose cannabis use disorder right now is not in alignment with the actuality and reality of how people are using cannabis. And so
Yes.
I thought that was
Yes.
really important to have her there speaking to that point as well.
Yeah, she's amazing. And she's been doing research on that. And she brought information that was very even eye-opening to me, because it is a diagnosis that is slapped on someone's chart by whomever. Okay, it's subjective. So if you are a cannabis consumer and you have any issues and you go into the hospital, anyone could write that on your chart, cannabis use disorder, because there is not their criteria, honestly, if you look at their criteria for cannabis use disorder, guess what? I would fit on that list.
I would too.
What?
And pretty much anybody would who actually uses cannabis, because that criteria is just inappropriate. And it doesn't take into account appropriate versus inappropriate use. It doesn't really take into account, what types of cannabis you're using. At this stage of the game, what Nurse Neek identified was that someone who comes in to a psychiatric unit and tests positive for cannabis automatically is diagnosed or labeled with this diagnosis. And the reason that it's happening in such a prevalent way right now is because that diagnosis now has an ICD code that is billable to insurance. And so we're starting to see that happen more and more, which can be a problem, right? Because if somebody is, I know someone that recently was trying to get health insurance and his medical records were pulled and looked at, and they realized that he had disclosed his cannabis use and it was in his medical records, and he was denied a life insurance policy based on that being in his record. So I think it's, as you're talking about this revolution and changing the paradigm and a rapid paradigm shift, the work that Neek is doing to try and create these tools to correctly identify things like cannabis use disorder are going to be part of that, because we need to be really careful with these labels.
I agree. And the same thing too with the cannabis hyperemesis syndrome as well. Just because someone throws up using cannabis doesn't make them, doesn't automatically give them that criteria. There's just a lot of misinformation that's out there, and that's why that's why we do what we do, right? Because we need to have this essential knowledge for endocannabinoid system care. Truly, we do. And I really, and this just leads into the next segment that I really want to talk about was Ryan's Law, because we need to focus on that. You've created an amazing presentation on how to implement Ryan's Law in facilities. So let's just look at what Ryan's Law is and how we can implement it, because it's really, really important. Because I'm actually dealing with a lot of hospice patients right now that are using cannabis as medicine, that are at home and now need to go into a facility. So this is a really good topic for people. So you're on, Nurse Heather.
Yeah, no, that's such an important issue to discuss, because what Ryan's Law does, and Ryan's Law was a law that mandates that hospitals and healthcare facilities, certain healthcare facilities, allow terminally ill patients to use cannabis while they are receiving inpatient care. And so for a hospice patient, this is perfect because you're using it at home. It keeps that continuity of care once you go into the facility. That is the law now here in California as of January 1st, 2022. And we spent 4 years fighting and writing this law and testifying and really working to make this law a reality. And we're here now. So you alluded to the fact about we've created a video that is really paints with a broad brushstroke the landscape of what Ryan's Law is about and how it can be implemented. Because at this point, every hospital in the state of California is bound by this law. So if terminally ill patients are coming in and asking to use their cannabis and being denied, those healthcare facilities are not honoring the rights of those patients. And so, but it's interesting because when you pass a law, it doesn't automatically mean that everybody's going to jump on board and create those policies. So another part that we've done for this implementation is Ken Sobel, who actually co-wrote this Ryan's Law for California. He created a full-on implementation packet that has even like sample policies that hospitals can adopt, change, alter, but at least it gets them started and gives them all of the documentation that they would need to actually create and implement these policies within their facilicies. And this is huge for patients.
I know it is. So my question is, for patients that are out there, can they somehow get a copy of that PDF and bring it into the hospital with them?
Absolutely. And so even if they just wanted to go to the cannabisnursesnetwork.com, we have a Ryan's Law tab right there, and that's the Ryan's Law Action Center. And you can find all the information that you would need right there on that Action Center page.
Yep. And I just put it in the comments.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's actually, so I put it in there just now so people can have access to it.
You're so techie, Sherry.
Just for today.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks. So let's just give an example. For example, I'm a nurse and I'm like, Nurse Heather, how am I going to help this patient? This patient's at home, has hospice at home, now has, Alzheimer's dementia that's progressing, and now it's unsafe for her to be at home. I want to get her into this care facility. She's been accepted. How do I bring cannabis in there? Okay. It's part of the law.
Yeah.
How would I?
So what you would do as a caregiver, and in the state of California, it's legal for adult use. So you as an adult could actually have it and bring it into the patient. Now, the one caveat is that the person receiving the cannabis must be a cannabis patient, and have their recommendation from, their card, their med card. In the state of California, that's quite easy of a process. You can do it online and print out that document. So what you would do as a patient or a caregiver is take that document that shows they're a patient, their patient status, and then you can take their medicine in and say, this is what they use, and you can administer that medicine to them. They can administer it to themselves. The law really had a hands-off approach for nurses administering, but if the facility writes in their policies that if a caregiver brings it in, states how to use it and how to administer it, and the policy within that facility allows, the nurse would be allowed then to administer that medicine. But the way it is right now is that the nurse would then take that medicine, and whatever the policies for that facility are for storage, whether it's they keep it in the med room or they have provided a safety box in the room of the patient. And then they can even lock that box and keep the key in the med room. And when the patient requests their medicine at any point, the nurse must bring that medicine to them or be able to provide access for them to unlock or get their medicine. So that's really the way that it looks. There are, each facility will be a little bit different. This covers like residential care facilities, like you said, hospice facilities, nursing homes, hospitals, pretty much everything except for like addiction treatment, substance use disorder, and the penal medical, like the prison medicine.
Right.
They don't do it.
So here's a quick question. This is always controversial, and of course, I love to talk about controversial things. What about inhalation?
Yeah, so that is not allowed in obviously in the patient's room. What I have heard is that, just like anything else, they can't stop a patient from going outside and consuming however they wish off of the premises, but in their room, they can actually take edibles. There's no vaping or smoking within the facility. And that was part of the law. Everyone be protected, I guess.
Right. But the other thing that is possible is that could be the possibility that the patient could go get a breath of fresh air. You know what I mean? That they could set up something where, if the patient's ambulatory and cognitively intact and uses his medicine, and inhalation is a method that's going to relieve immediately, there could be, right, that they could say, oh, it's time for me to go get my breath of fresh air.
Well, even in nursing homes or assisted living homes, like if the patient is a smoker, they're
And
a
let them smoke.
smoker, whether it's
Right.
tobacco. If they're a drinker, they're a drinker. Even in nursing homes, I've seen, that a nightcap is ordered for this patient because they'd always had it or whatever. And there were spaces outside where you would see patients actually going out to smoke their cigarette or whatever. So it depends on the facility, but in these homes, this is their home. And so what I love about this law with Ryan's law is that it helps to extend what you would be able to do, your rights within your own home, even into like these skilled nursing or nursing care facilities.
Yeah. So how can we implement Ryan's law in other states?
So we're working on that. The Ryan's Law teams are being built out. There's some movement already in Washington and Oregon. We've got about 12 states that we've identified that we believe we can, make this happen. So we started this year in some others, Oregon and Washington, and we're climate of the other states, and we'll be doing more next year and the next year until we get this moved across through all the states that have medical and or adult use cannabis laws. It's important. If something were to happen to me, I would want to be able to have access to whatever brought me joy and peace and happiness and health and healing. And if that's a cheeseburger, I want someone to cheeseburger and bring it to me. If it's cannabis medicine, I want to be able to use cannabis medicine in my hospital room or whatnot. So if you're terminal, this opens it up for you to be able to continue that care that you would receive in your home.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I'm going to bring up, and it's just a quick little story. The patient that I took care of years ago, who happened to be a nurse, who experienced medical and pharmaceutical trauma to the point where she was afraid to go to the doctors and go to the hospital. So this is really, really serious. This is, a very smart, intelligent nurse sent home on hospice to die on over 40 medications. She found cannabis. No one told her. She figured it out. She was traumatized by the conventional system. So you think about having to work through that, finds cannabis, comes off the pharmaceuticals. However, once you have chronic debilitating illness, it can be managed, but sometimes it flares back up. You get chronic pain flares, things happen. She had a severe autoimmune condition. It came back. And she needed conventional therapy. She needed real live pharmaceuticals, but the fear was so great that she denied herself care for a long time and ended up suffering consequences, health-wise. So this is why it's really, really important. I was able to help her get into the hospital utilizing cannabis as medicine, but it was a project. It was a good, I'm talking 3 days of talking to the emergency room, talking to the doctors, talking to the gastroenterologist, talking to the IV team, talking to and just telling them that this is the glue that is keeping her together. She needs traditional, conventional pharmaceuticals to bridge the gap from what she's not getting from cannabis as medicine.
Yeah.
If you take this cannabis away from her, she will unravel. It would be, and what I said to them, I looked them straight in the eye and I said, if you take away this woman's cannabis as medicine, it would be like you taking away insulin from a diabetic.
Well, and the endocannabinoid system is important. We know that it's like a vital system that we've neglected to really care for in conventional medicine. And that's really, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but that's really why we took the stand with our Cannabis Nurses Network conference for 2022. And the title of our conference is The Future of Nursing, Essential Knowledge for Endocannabinoid System Care, right? Because we realize that it's not, for years we danced around and said, oh, please learn about the endocannabinoid system. This is really, we're not doing that anymore. We're now saying the science is there, the data is there, the medicine is there, the access is there. And at this stage of the game, if you are a nurse who is not practicing endocannabinoid system care, you are lacking in your practice. And the future is whole person care, including the endocannabinoid system. And so, I know that sounds kind of harsh, but the truth is The future of nursing includes endocannabinoid system care. And if nurses today are not practicing that, not practicing an evidence-based practice. And we're here to help bridge that gap for them so that they can feel confident in practicing that. Because the problem is people associating their stigma with cannabis with care, and it's two separate things that cannabis itself, as a brilliant plant teacher, has brought us to understand the importance of this system for balance and homeostasis. So
absolutely,
we're standing firm on the future of nursing.
Well, the thing too, and that's what propelled me to start my podcast in 2018 was the 6 principal areas of essential knowledge. The National Council State Boards of Nursing in 2018 put out a call to action, a 64-page document in the Journal of Nursing Regulation that nurses must have 6 essential areas of knowledge. We are looking to have this put on the nursing board exam because as a clinician, as a nurse, it is important for us to care for the entire human experience and patient's preferred method of treatment, no matter what it is. The essence of nursing is human caring. And as nurses, we do have an ethical obligation to learn on any therapies that could potentially help bridge the gap from what they're not getting to relieve suffering and improve quality of life. So your conference, I am really excited. Hopefully I get accepted to speak. I applied.
Yeah, I'll talk to those in charge.
I'll let you know. I know those in charge. But anyway, so it's September 1st and 2nd in San Diego. It's a hybrid conference, virtual plus live in-person experience. I love what you're covering. You're covering new laws, guidelines, science, the 6 principles of essential knowledge, and an endocannabinoid system activation workshop. That I'm really excited for.
Yeah, no, everybody says they're excited for that. We talk about these things that can help support and activate and tonify and boost the endocannabinoid system. But we're really going to put that into action this year. I feel like all of us need that. I know I need it personally. And what a great way to do that within our cannabis nursing community and to really practice what it is that we preach and to feel the benefits of it for ourselves. So we're excited for the in-person live event that we've not been able to have for a couple of years. So this will be really precious. But also we don't want to forget those who maybe aren't ready to make the trip or the leap all the way to a in-person conference. And so the hybrid virtual event will be equally as exciting for those who are at home.
Oh, great. And now, do you all have any speakers lined up already? I know that, there's a lot of people that are applying, but do you have any hints?
Yes.
Keynotes that you want to give us?
I'll give you one keynote. So we know for sure that Dr. Uwe Bleshing will be there. We typically do a author's book signing mixer after the first day of education. So we're really focused on having authors come, researchers, folks that have, written books and are out there so that when we have our mixer for us, education also is as important as the networking piece. Yeah. And so creating these spaces where we as nurses can have one-on-one FaceTime with these authors that we read their books, we store them in our bookshelves, but here we get to be with them. They can sign our books for us and really have that connection. That's what we're focused on with the Cannabis Nurses Network conference, is creating these settings where magic can happen and connections can take place that will really change the trajectory of people's journeys after the conference.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, I was lucky enough to speak in, was it 2019 or 20?
2022.
No, was it 2020 was the last one?
2020 was the one we did virtually. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I remember speaking on that, and that was an amazing time. It was absolutely amazing. I remember having a little party at my house. I had nurses over. We put the entire presentation up on my TV. We had our cannabis, we had our tea, we had some snacks, and we really got to spend time together as nurses learning. Yeah. And then I got to see myself. I was like, oh, there I am. Woo!
Yeah. It is. It's so fun. And doing the live events in person, where we get to sit and eat together. We, get to hang out by the pool together and all those really beautiful interactions. I mean, as cannabis nurses, we were just talking about this, the importance of community. Cannabis is a great healing tool, but cannabis nursing is not always that easy. And we constantly have to remember, why am I doing this? Oh, because I'm super passionate and I feel very privileged to be a nurse today who can be working with this plant and the knowledge that it's providing us. And so, it's very lovely to be around each other and spend time with each other in that realm.
And the part that I love too about it is that everyone is super helpful in giving, feedback and helping each other and wanting each other to grow and supporting each other. It's like the Cannabis Nurses Network has an amazing connection of people that really, really do put what? They put principles above personalities and really 100% care and nurture for each other. And that's what we need here. I mean, we are in traumatic times where we need to band together as nurses, not even in just the cannabis space, but as nurses together and support and love one another. And if you're new and you're thinking of exploring nursing, please check out the Cannabis Nurses Network. They were one of the first organizations that I joined, and they've truly been impactful in how I have grown, how I've learned, how I've showed up in the space, and how I'm able to help other nurses and more patients get access to learn about the most misunderstood plant in the whole world. Yeah. So the other thing I want to bring up too is you have the Cannabis Nurses Network. And so the Cannabis Nurses Network, which we just talked about, you have a membership. It's a private membership. So can you just let our viewers know about that?
Yeah, so we have a private place where we've created this real safe container for us as cannabis nurses to connect with one another, to learn. You can engage as much as you want with others. You can kind of sit in the back and lurk. We've got nurses that come and post and engage every day, and others that show up whenever they have time. And so what we've done with the network is it's just this one opportunity for you to be around your people and to be rooted on and loved by your fellow colleagues, right? Because it's so hard out there sometimes to be a cannabis nurse. You feel like you're alone. Really just want to love you. We consider cannabis nursing a journey, and we recognize that everybody comes into the network or they're on their cannabis nurse journey at some level. And we want to meet you where you are and help to accelerate your experience and to really enrich your journey as well. And it's fun. It's fun to travel your journey with friends. And that's one of the things that I really love about the network, is how it creates these connections for relationships to form.
Yep. Excellent. And so I put the link in the comments below, and I also put the link to the Cannabis Nurses Network Speakers Bureau. Okay, so let's let our viewers know about that, because if you are all out there looking for a nurse to speak at your event, guess what? Heather has trained the best of the best.
We've got you covered. And actually, our Speakers Bureau training was with Maureen McNamara, who is just like an amazing speaking coach. And she's been so helpful with us over these years, helping our nurses really find their voices and be able to present powerfully. And so, yes, we have nurses that have been trained and vetted and have had opportunities and experiences, and they are ready to speak at your conference. So if you're having a conference or you would like to have an event that you're doing, go check out that Speakers Bureau. We've made it very easy for you to request a speaker. It's got a drop down. You choose who you want, and you send an email directly to that speaker. It's not coming to us as the network. It's your direct line to those speakers.
That's excellent.
So start inviting them.
Absolutely. And so I'm putting also in the comments the link to register to attend the conference. Okay, so September 1st and 2nd in San Diego, La Jolla.
Yes.
Can't wait to get to La Jolla, beautiful La Jolla.
Yes.
And
we're overlooking the Torrey Pines Hilton, the famous, legendary Torrey Pines Hilton golf course. And so we're in a really beautiful location. And we want people to come and just feel good while they're there and feel even better when they leave.
Absolutely. Sounds good to me. I'm ready for it. Heather, thank you so much for all that you do. This has been an amazing show. I got to do a little plug here and there. I want to invite you all to Holistic Caring in the Green Nurses. We also have a private network for patients and providers, free introductory to cannabis course, patient portal, support group, and book club. And Elizabeth has it's Men's Health Awareness Month, and she has created Holistic Wellness and CBD Patient Program. And so she's put that on sale for this month. Men 25 for 25% off, Holistic Wellness and CBD Patient Program. Other thing that she put on sale is to say, thank you, girlfriend Elizabeth. Happy Pride Month. So Nurse 25 for 25% off all professional programs at holisticcaring.com. So this has been amazing podcast. Nurse Heather, thank you for all you do. Really grateful. Join us next week. We're going to be in Kansas City, Missouri for Patients Out of Time. I'm going to be with Nurse Carrie Lee and Nurse Elizabeth, and we're going to be going live right from the event to share some of that hope and inspiration for growth and healing. And remember, everyone, what it's all about. It's about living your best life and helping others do the same. We'll see you next week.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And you know, the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.